go to source for in-depth analysis of political events in the country, in the state, and beyond. We bring on expert analysts to break down the latest developments and provide insightful commentary. My name is Kimberly Ubiebo. Don't forget, you can be a part of the conversation on our WhatsApp platform or our social media platforms, all right? Tonight, we have Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, the Labour Party Gubernatorial Candidate and an architect. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And also we have Mr. Maduka Owukeme, a corporate attorney and tax consultant. He joins us on the program this evening. Hi, Maduka. Good to have you join us.
Good evening, Lagos. Good evening, GRV Lagos.
Thank you.
All right, then. So we're going to look at governance and leadership in Lagos. And you are the Labour Party gubernatorial candidate. Lagos, as we all know, is Nigeria's economic hub. It has a complex governance structure and currently headed by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. We'll talk about how, that will likely change soon with you coming in, hopefully. He oversees the executive branch, the legislative branch, which recently was embroidered in, the crisis that went on. So where do we start? We are starting off late. So let's start off with the assembly crisis. I'm sure you follow that. I want to get your perception on that, the Lagos assembly crisis.
Well, I think that it was sacrilege to see DSS and any people bringing guns into the State Assembly. I think that was sacrilege. I think that really took our politics back significantly. I think the only reason why it has not become this big national issue was because the State Assembly members resisted. And through that, regardless of the intimidation, the Speaker still stood her ground. The Assembly members put a vote of confidence for her in her favor.
Okay.
So the story did not escalate into something else.
Okay.
Which we have to give credit to the State Assembly for. But aside that, what is very disappointing is the fact that there's so many allegations and there's so much. The State Assembly has stood on the business that the former Speaker was embroiled in a lot of financial fraud, and up till now, EFCC has not been brought in. He's not accounting for these monies. Lagos State has one of the highest budgets in Nigeria for its State Assembly, almost times 3 of the budget of the state that comes after it. And these monies are being used clearly in ways that are not beneficial for the constituents that are sent there, that send them there to represent them. So this is also a very big issue. And I see how they're trying to resolve it. But again, the State Assembly must not be the tool for one politician or one politician's desire to control a state. The State Assembly and the lawmakers must, first and foremost, owe their loyalty to the people of Lagos, to their constituents. And in all of this dialogue, that has never been a topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's putting the people's interest first. But what do you think particularly about Obasa's removal? Do you think it's justifiable?
It's clearly justifiable. I mean, he's been in that position for almost 10 years, aside from being in the State Assembly for almost 15 years. And these are huge allegations that have been brought against him. And for them to be so focused and so, the word is not diligent, but so they're so focused on ensuring that this stand they've taken remains, and they've gone to great lengths and stuck their necks out to make sure that this stand remains. It says a lot about the reality of his speakership and his managing of situation around the State Assembly.
Okay, let me ask you how this reflects on governance in Lagos State leadership. Looking at things further, how do you think this reflects on governance in Lagos?
For me, I see this entire APC system that has controlled Lagos for the past 2 decades now as just sort of a mafia system, in my opinion. It's just a system of people that are just entrenched to allow the continuous maximization of monies that are taken out of the people, not necessarily in the interest of the people, but just having power to perpetuate itself. It's about control. It's not about service. And you see it in the way he was removed. You see it in the way he was tried to be forced back. You see it in the resistance to being forced back. You see it in the kind of conversations that they're having. It's just about retaining power and controlling power in the state. It's state capture, right? The state assembly and the executive are supposed to be checks and balances to each other. But you see, like, there's a complete state capture, and it's only when the state assembly members themselves, their interest is not being served, that they are pushing back. They're not pushing back on bad governance. They're not pushing back on the looting. It's just, oh, you are stealing and not benefit us the way it's supposed to. So now we are pushing against you. And even pushing against him, then there's no accountability. All that money that was the Commonwealth, they said 17 billion for a gate. Where's that money? Who is going into his accounts and getting that money and applying it back into the primary school system, the healthcare system, the education system? Who's doing that? No. It's just you've been a bad boy because you're not doing things well in all our interest, which is the political elite interest. So you can sit on the bench and we're going to put somebody else, and we're not quite happy how they removed you, but it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Okay.
All that money could have benefited so many people in Lagos State.
Okay, so what on the streets is that, all of this is in the build-up to the general elections. What do you have to say about that? Clearly, the president wasn't in support with how Obasa was removed. You want to comment on that?
Well, I mean, that's what we're reading. But with APC, the more you look, the less you see. All this could just be plot. It could just be drama so that they could then send him into another party. He gets the ticket, and then they control all the typical candidates on the ballot. So with them, I mean, we saw a situation where the current president appeared to be extremely sick during the campaigns, and now he's looking healthier than when before he even ran. And I'm talking about
so
before
you're saying
even
he
the
wasn't
election.
sick? Are you saying it's possible he wasn't sick?
What I know about the
appeared to be
APC,
sick.
because, you have to also respect the people that you go up against and study them. They are specialists in deception and propaganda. They're exceptionally good at it. They are very, very good at it.
Yeah.
And so you always have to look beyond the surface. They're very good at lateral.
We already have calls coming in, but I really want to hear more.
Yeah, they're very good at lateral strategy, lateral thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's never just one-way traffic. They can be doing something to distract you here, but they're planning something here. So they're extremely strategic. I just wish they put all that strategic energy for the betterment of the Nigerian, for the betterment of Lagosian. Because since they've come in, the suffering in Nigeria has just taken
Okay, Mr.
an
Gbadebo,
exponential
how
factor.
is the Labour Party in Lagos different from the APC? And also, at some point, you ran on the PDP platform. So how is that different from,
Well, first and foremost, none of these parties have been in charge of governance in this state. And that's the reason why I joined them, because everything that I can understand about Lagos is responsibility of the APC. Whether it's state capture from the local government level, to the way governance is run, to the fact that none of these people in power can send their kids to the same public school they went to years ago. And that in itself is an indictment of the government. So political parties now have an opportunity to come in and do things in the interest of the people without any godfather that's going to be pulling their strings, and so focus solely on leading and serving the people, so that it's the people that put them back in.
So you're running without a godfather as the
Certainly.
gubernatorial candidate. All right, let's go to Mr. Maduka briefly before I come back to you. Mr.
All right.
Maduka, now you've heard all that Gbadebo has to say. What is I asked him about the Lagos Assembly crisis and, how he would handle it differently. He talked about the APC and propaganda and whatnot. You listened carefully. So what's your own response to that?
Well. I think I'll believe GRV, because GRV is the only man who came close to almost unseating the party in power in Lagos. In fact, you have to give it to him. His party made
without
the
giving it to
president
him,
lose Lagos during the presidential election. So I think it's a rugged.
Okay, I understand you want to give it to him, but objectively, GRV is laughing. Objectively analyze the situation.
No, I would agree with him in respect of the situation in in the House of Assembly. GRV seems to have a proper understanding of how the system works here, about that this fight is not even about the common people. It's always...
Okay, so what do you think GRV has done over time to convince you that he's about the people?
Well, so he says. I think GRV has a track record of but he said he's been in the PDP. Will follow this progress from when he was in the PDP. And for me, GRV, the only person who has come close to doing what GRV almost did was the late Funsho Williams, who was about to tear down the political system in Lagos and dislodge the Godfathers way back how many years ago. That was the 2007 election. And for a young man, 40 at the age of 40, almost doing that, creating such an upset that Lagos State, the presidential candidate from Lagos State, lost Lagos and almost lost the gubernatorial election, if not for the violence that was unleashed on voters, the ethnic baiting and all. You have to give it to him. I'm just respecting him.
Okay. So clearly, GRV, you're loved, clearly.
What he has said.
Yeah.
I would also expect to hear GRV's comments, in respect of the fact that the case of the speaker for the first time has gone, issue of governance, trouble in one arm of government in Lagos State is going to the State High Court for determination, the third arm of government. GRV has a legacy, or will I say heritage, of having judicial officers from his family. So I would like to hear what he thinks about this. Is this not a sign of something positive?
Right.
That at least for the first time, we're seeing some form of democratic culture. Because ordinarily, things like this are usually settled as a family affair and not issues that affect the public.
All right.
So I would hear what he has to say about that. And also, considering the fact that GRV himself, like I said, he has a very good judicial heritage and legal heritage. Back then, when GRV addressed us as lawyers prior to the election, we were looking at him as one of us, even though he was an architect.
Okay, so Mr. Maduka, I think we should just, let him answer the questions one at a time. So I guess you got the first question.
First of all, I'm saying God bless Mr. Maduka. God bless you. Thank you so much.
No.
So the question in relation to the speaker approaching the court, they should have just done that and stayed with that as a side, as opposed to come and commit sacrilege in the hollowed chambers of the State Assembly. It's absolutely, boots are never supposed to enter the assembly, except there's a coup. And what we're planning was a coup. Unfortunately, the people stood up to it. So that's unacceptable. But there's also, again, the court thing. That's fine. You can go to court all you want. I assure you, the state, Obasa will not sit down for 10 minutes and he'll be impeached again. Because it's not a complicated process. It's not like you're impeaching a governor where you have to, write a petition and go to court and wait for a couple of months. This is a vote of no confidence in your speakership, and that's it. It's not something that will take. So if almost, I think, 36 out of 39 people are standing with the current speaker, who, for me, I think the most important balance is a gender balance, because you have a governor deputy, both male. We've not seen a female speaker in God knows how long. So I think it's a thing of joy to have a woman be in charge of the assembly. All of a sudden, everybody is now so throwing hullabaloos about this idea of Lagos West not being represented. But, again, after I saw a president and a vice president, both of them Muslim, replace a Muslim president, I think this whole conversation about balance and zoning really is now just a tool that is used when it's convenient and when people just want to, do things in their interest. When they don't care, they just do what they want. So I don't really give a lot of credence to that.
All right, if you're listening, this is Politics Now. You can call in now, 0805-092-0927. That's 0805-092-0927. You can send your WhatsApp messages to 0705-690-0927. Our social media handle, our identity online is at Super FM Lagos. On Facebook, you can drop your comments and questions as well. So now let's talk about governance and, in Lagos. What would you say are the most pressing challenges facing Lagos State's development now?
Human capacity development, because a lot of our youth are wasting away.
Okay.
Affordable accommodation. Not just affordable, but accessible as well. When I use the word accessible, I'm being very deliberate about that because there can be affordable accommodation, but it's not accessible because you're having to pay huge agent fees, you're having to pay huge legal fees. You see that there is a self-contained apartment somewhere in Amo, and the rent is 500,000. But by the time you pay your agent and legal fees, you have added now 500,000. So all of a sudden now you're now looking at almost 1 million to 1.1 million. And you have to consider also this minimum wage we're talking about is 80,000 naira, 85,000 naira. That means in a year, with your transport costs and feeding costs, you're now seeing up to 1 million, right? And these are the things that allow for a systemic system of corruption, not just in government, but in private sector as well. So the state must be very deliberate in actually achieving affordable housing, right? And also taking out barriers that impede upon people having access
So let's say
to
you're
affordable
governor.
housing.
Let's say you become governor of Lagos State. How do you intend to achieve that? Affordable housing.
Okay, so first there's the supply and then there's the demand side. But mainly is really the supply side. So one, we want to increase the amount of affordable housing stock. In doing this, we need to incentivize developers to develop in places where it's not as expensive to build. Now, it's very expensive to build in Lagos Central because a lot of the land is sandfield. That increases your cost of construction significantly, which then already sets a very high base price for any rental or property that's being bought. So it's more affordable to build on table land. So we're looking at places like Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, Lagos West or Jaw, all of that, Alimosho. There's still a significant amount of land there, amount of development. And so the focus of government should be one, incentivizing developers and then working very hard to connect these places. Now, we cannot have a situation where it's taking 16 years to do 16 kilometers of rail. We need to focus on getting rail done and bringing private sector in as soon as possible, as fast as possible. The state does not have to pay for these things. The development of the state should not be tied to the purse strings of the state. You create a transparent and a transparent means by which the private sector can come in, and your main interest should be what is it going to cost the Lagosian to use this service. That's where the government comes in.
Okay, so
I've not finished.
Okay.
That's that part of it. So increase housing stock. Also, to create an affordable housing fund where development that happens in the high-end parts of Lagos, as opposed to collecting this huge amount of taxes, you give them rebates for including affordable housing in those units or building that same volume in other parts of Lagos. So, for instance, if in England, in most developed countries, there are affordable houses that are built even in the richest parts of London. So, to get your planning approval, if you're building 50 flats in a highbrow area of London, at least 3 or 4 of those flats must be for affordable housing, and they are linked directly to the council. So if you don't have a job, if you're a single mother, the council can give you. So it's not development to the exclusion of people that don't have money, but it's an inclusive type of development. Now, if the developer looks at it and says, okay, he's not going to be able to fit those flats in that place, we can say, okay, on this land that we have in Ekpe, we want you to build this amount of units, right? So in that way, you're also increasing housing stock. Then secondly, we need to make sure that there is a platform where we can regulate agency fees and legal fees.
especially on the mainland.
You know, the worst thing that people don't realize, people that don't have pay so much more and suffer so much more than the people that have. I mean, when you look at percentage of income, right? The percentage of income of informal taxation on a woman selling pure water is times 5 the percentage of income that a person that has a steady job is paying in taxes to the government. Because that woman barely has anything, and you're taking like 10 packs of the equivalent of 10 packs of pure water that she's selling on her tree, and that money is not being accounted for. So that's one. And then also, like we talked about, agency charges, legal charges. It's ridiculous. Like if you're going to stay on island, maybe you pay 10% of the total thing. But when you're paying almost 50% of the rent, it's ridiculous.
So you're taking a cue from Lateef Jakonde's handling
I
of
think
housing.
Lateef Jakonde is the best governor that Lagos State has
Yeah.
experienced and ever
Well,
had.
his son will be happy to hear you. He's a friend of the program as well.
I mean,
definitely.
and I would like to meet him. I would like to actually
No,
get his
definitely,
number
I'll
from
hook
him.
you guys
Yes,
up.
please.
Definitely.
I'm
now,
actually reading the book on him now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's nice.
it's called
His
His
Remembrance
Life.
was just last week.
Really?
I was supposed to be there. Yeah,
His
absolutely.
story is history. I
Yes,
think that's
yes,
the
he
name of the
did
book.
good. He did good with housing. But now let's focus back on you. There's another serious situation with Agberos on the streets of Lagos.
Which is why I said the second thing will be human capacity development. Ensuring that our young men are given skills, not just skills in reading or understanding books, but also vocational skills. And these skills are going to then be used to develop their particular community. So if we're doing any work in that local government, in that ward, it's the trained skillsmen that are in that place that will be used for those projects.
All right. Some questions on WhatsApp. Well, Mr. Maduka has been silent, so let's hear from Mr. Maduka. I hope you're not just going to reiterate what GRV has said. We won't take some questions on...
I believe asking GRV about housing issue in Lagos is being unfair, because GRV said he's an architect and he will build Lagos. It's something very easy. I would have expected you to ask him questions about reducing poverty and the rest of that.
Well,
but then I wanted to ask GRV something.
So you can ask him. He's laughing. You can ask him now.
That's why I feel Lagos deserves an architect. That's why I said the architect of a new Lagos.
Okay.
We've had accountants, we've had lawyers. It's time to do something different.
Yes. All right. So what's the question?
GRV, I recall close to the election, you were not in government, but we felt your impact. It was like one word from GRV, the people in government seem to do something. GRV says, do not seize the cars of motorists who breach the law. There are other sanctions, and then all the cars seized were released. You say something about releasing SARS protesters, and they were all released from prison. Those who have been held without. There were so many instances. But after the election, you seem to have, we don't hear your voice that much on policy matters. So what happened?
Well, that's part of why he's here.
That's
so.
GRV who prior to election.
I hear you, but I seriously beg to differ. I beg to differ because, except maybe if you're only watching CNN and Al Jazeera, if you watch local news or radio or follow me on Twitter, I did several interviews about this state assembly crisis. I've been talking about the sanfilling of Makoko and the displacement of that indigenous community there. Prior to that, we talked about the stealing of money, Lagos Commonwealth, by the present governor and
Allegedly,
the
right?
situation. Well, I mean, it's based on their own documents. 200 million was used for his own personal legal fees, right? And then we also highlighted the fact that they use money from Lagos State to fund party activities. There's several things that we've been on. Consultancy fees that are exaggerated and all sorts.
Okay, now let's take some messages. This one says, what have you been doing to ensure that other small political parties in Lagos galvanize towards you?
Well, we've been having talks. There's a lot of talks that are not in the open, obviously. So there's a lot of that going on. A lot of getting to know ourselves, building trust, building community as well. And that is ongoing.
But now, what's playing out with the Labour Party on the national, scene? Wouldn't that affect your run?
No, I don't see it affecting my run.
Because the Julius
What is
Savare,
currently
Peter
going
Obi
on
thing
in
going
Labour
on.
Party is a very civilized means of coming to disagreeing to agree. Nobody is invading the states, the national secretariat and throwing chairs and beating people. We've not come anywhere close to that. People have gone to court, they've appealed, they're at the Supreme Court now. After the Supreme Court is God, and everybody will sit down around the table and come to an agreement. It's still very civil, it's still very, and even you have the party structure coming out to say that Peter Obi is their candidate for 2027. So,
but do you think Peter Obi somehow has lost his popularity? I asked Arabambi the same question.
I wouldn't say he's lost his popularity. Peter Obi is not campaigning at this point now. He's just moving around. He's still one of the most...
Yeah, but what I mean is, do you think the whole thing has died down? Somehow you and Peter Obi made a lot of noise. You know what I mean? A lot of positive noise, like Maduka would say. But do you think over time that has died down?
Well, it's not campaign season. You can only tell when it's campaign season.
Well,
we cannot be in perpetual campaign.
Yeah.
Because that's also illegal.
Well, don't you think that's the error? Don't you think the APC is always in perpetual campaign?
No,
One
I don't
way or
think
the
so.
other, putting their best foot forward ahead of the general elections.
No, when the APC was trying to take power from Jonathan, what they were doing was criticizing. There was a lot of criticism, propaganda, lies, a lot of things, sabotaging the government. Labour Party is not about sabotaging government, right? Peter Obi has always lent his voice, and I have done the same, to issues that I feel or he feels are of influence and of import. And he's constantly done that. He's not gone to sleep after elections. Now, that is what you do as opposition. But when it's time for campaign and he starts moving to campaign, and you see the steam behind him, you can then at that point judge and say no. But there's another thing you need to understand.
Somehow, sorry to cut you short. Somehow we've been seeing the Sheyi Tinubu thing going on. Somehow the media, it's been injected into the media one way or the other that Sheyi Tinubu, son of the president, will likely run for governor of Lagos State. So, I mean, is the Labour Party doing anything to just, whet the appetite of Lagosians? Or you just quiet till it's time for election?
I'm very surprised that you talk about being quiet.
No, Amaduka even asked you the same question. Probably he wasn't, because obviously he's like, oh, GRV, you're saying something, he's like, yeah, but then maybe he feels like he's not seeing you enough.
Well, I guess there's always more work to be done, and that's what we're going to be doing. But again, I'm not new on the block, so I don't have to start getting support groups to start saying we're going to support Gbadebo, support groups that have no integrity or nothing that we can really write them about. And you can do that with just your PR team, just get different groups to say they want Gbadebo to be governor. What we're focused on is our micro health insurance plan that we've been taking around Lagos, getting people access to free diagnostic health, free health care all over Lagos. That's what we've been doing. Also focus on holding government accountable and just building our support base in communities. Because the work that we're doing now will make us stronger and a lot more robust when it comes to the next election by God's grace.
All right, Maduka, you have any questions? We're out of time at this point. So let's wrap it up with...
was the first, the state of his political party. Because even though he tries to say Labour Party is intact, but we've seen a gale of defections. Well, to be fair, Labour Party is not the only party suffering this. It seems all the opposition parties are being decimated by the APC, with crisis being instigated, with the gale of defections. What is it? Was one. And secondly, GRV, you're the leader of the obedience in Lagos. What is the state of that movement? Are you still in touch? Is your support base still intact? And you still command the support you commanded before the elections the last time? Those are my questions, sir.
Oh, fantastic questions. Fortunately, you see, we have House of Rep members, House of Assembly members. All of them are still with us in Lagos State. There's been no defections, and I'm very grateful to them for that. You can imagine the amount of pressure that's on the opposition members. And also, sometimes it's also good for people that have that in their heart to defect to go, because those are opportunist politicians, right? And sometimes you're better off with people that have an idea and really stand for something. Not this, if you can't beat them, join them kind of people. For us, we believe we can't beat them, stand out and give people that idea and that understanding that you are different and this is what you stand for. So that's that. So we are intact in that regard. What was the last point?
I think he just, I think you've answered it.
The obedient movement. The obedient movement is fantastic. It's great. There's a lot of bringing structure to it now. And that is being done very intentionally. And there are several meetings that are going to start in Northwest. And that's already in plans, in the pipeline. And that's ongoing.
So when are you starting? Okay, 2 questions I have for you before we wrap it up. First of all, how does the Labour Party plan to penetrate the grassroots governance in Lagos? Because as much as you'd want to be governor, having the APC at the assembly and then, grassroots, the local government, all APC, won't that frustrate your, governance one way or the other?
How did that stop Peter Obi from winning the presidential election?
Well, INEC didn't say he won.
No, he did. He won in Lagos State.
Well, okay, yeah.
I mean, INEC had to say that.
No, but the thing is, I'm trying to picture what are the plans for Labour Party now to penetrate, because grassroots governance is
it's very important.
Yes, very
but
important.
Then we also have to understand that local government elections, for the most part, are not a real reflection of the voice or the desires of the people, because there is a conflict of interest where the umpire is being employed by the state and the people in power. And I cannot even be critical of this just in Lagos. You see, in Abia State, overnight, Alex Oti announced another party and they pretty much took everything. That's the way it is in Nigeria, right? So the election in itself is not a reflection of whether we have a democratic process, a true democratic process at that level. So I can't make any further comment on that. But as a party, what we're doing is consolidating our gains, bringing more people in, ensuring that we are building our structures at that local government level, ensuring that they are active, putting the best hands in. And that's really what we're doing. And we're talking to a lot of other parties as well and getting the best hands in. So that's what we're doing.
So any plans to start, early campaign? Like we said, you need to, I mean, he's asking you about why he's not seeing more of you.
No,
so what are the plans to see and hear more of you? And, because we need a strong opposition for the general elections.
Of course. And I'll say that you should follow us on our social media handles so you can see. Well, there are lots of people that are on radio that are hearing us.
So I think you're loved because somehow you're getting 15 extra minutes. So this is
I'm not complaining. I'm here for you.
Okay, so let's take this call now at this point. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. But GRV, it's not enough that you're loved. You have to convince us one way or the other. Because now, I asked you about the situation with the Gbadebo. That's a serious...
But I told you about that now. And that's one of my major campaign points.
What on the streets is that they are backed by superpowers. So how do you intend to get rid of the superpowers?
We're not getting rid of these people.
Let's take this call.
Hello? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to you.
You look from Yanopaja.
Okay, from Yanopaja. Good to have you. How is Yanopaja tonight?
Fine.
All right. What's your question to GRV of the Labour Party?
Well, I don't really have a question. I just want to comment it like GRV the man. I just want to comment you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Okay, why are you saying he's the man? What exactly? Why are you saying he's the man? I'm not saying he's not, but what's the?
So basically, the last election we all knew what happened, but I don't respect him the way he plans, because if he had entered, I'm sure we won't be where we are now. Plans, his resolutions, basically manifesto.
Jeremy, I don't like the way your head is.
And even what he spoke about today, about the rent to Lagos, is a major problem, because I feel it should be regulated. You can't tell me I'll have a small apartment. Essentially, you can't have a small apartment for over 700k, and the landlord is just calling it like that. I think 700k is like 70 naira. The way you just say it like that, so I feel this should be highly regulated, and I really enjoy this show. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Now, GRV, another situation with Lagos beyond housing is, the issue of population. A lot of people move into Lagos, search for greener pastures, and then there are environmental issues with waste. Lagos is struggling seriously with waste management. And then if you check, the air in Abuja or elsewhere is clearer than Lagos. We have to admit that, because a lot of pollution, the amount of cars on the road. So how do you intend to, tackle the issue of traffic congestion and, pollution and environmental challenges in Lagos?
And this is why Lagos needs an architect.
No, it's not. No, see.
No.
Break it down for us.
Let me break it down for you.
Yes.
Let me break it down for you. First, let's start with taking away this fallacy that our problems are because of our population. It's the same population that allows Lagos to generate so much wealth. Now, how is that money being used? How is that money being used to develop and create an even distribution of development across Lagos State? The problem is development is centered always in Lagos Central, and it has been like this for over hundreds of years, right? You have Badagry, the Badagry division, completely left out of governance for such a long time. Same thing with Lagos East, completely left out. Ibejuleki is just starting to be developed. They sold huge amounts of lands, or they sold huge amounts of lands to Dangote. He said he bought it for $100 million. Till today, the indigenes of Ibejuleki were only just found out about that, and that money has not been used for any development in Ibejuleki. The hospital that they still have in Ibejuleki is 20 years old. You would imagine that if such wealth came because of a community, that money will be plowed back into that community. So we need more even distribution on development, right? So that way you're not having everybody coming on the road, coming to the island, from the island, you're even going to the mainland. No. Every local government needs to have its own magnet, its own sustainable independence. Like, for instance, in England, every borough can stand on its own. They have their own hospital. They have their own solid, well-distributed primary schools and education system. So you don't have to leave one local government to go to another local government to look for a service. And secondly, there are incentives in every local government to ensure that this local government, people that live there, can work in this same place, right? So that way you reduce the congestion, because everybody is not having to go to Lagos Central, right? That is better planning. And once you do that, your air quality starts to become better, because Lagos State is not a manufacturing state, right? If you're in a state like Ogun State obviously has a lot more land mass. But Ogun State, a lot of manufacturing is going on in Ogun State. So if the air quality was bad, you would understand. But Lagos State is not a major manufacturing state. Most of our manufacturing estates that are in Ikeja, all on the background and all that, most of them have now been converted to churches, right? So that is not what is creating the waste. It's about the lack of proper, even development in Lagos State.
All right, Maduka is on the line. This is still politics now. Some messages came in, but I can't really point it out. Please, you resend your message. If you're listening, you can call the studio line. We still have some time. 0805.
If you guys want to extend time, I'm not rushing.
09.
You guys. My own power comes from the people, not the Godfather. So I'm willing to have conversations.
Exactly in Lagos State.
Yes, but it's also a thing for people that are not willing to do the work. You see, it's very easy to just join the people, just join the crowd, join the wave, join the winning team, right? But when you do that, you cannot make the impact that you want to make if you are in it for impact, just to be associated with the powers that be. That's not why I'm in politics. That's why you can't see me. I started the COA party when I ran for local government chairman. I joined the PDP when I ran for Senate. And
I want to ask you about the PDP. Do you think the mindset you have now would still be the mindset, if you were still with the PDP?
The question on the issue of the judiciary. If you become the governor of Lagos State, you will be saddled with judicial appointments. And of course, though the judiciary is an independent arm of government, but how would you guarantee, one, the independence of the judiciary in Lagos, and also ensure that you are brimming with ideas of innovation and the rest of that? What innovation would you engender in respect of the judiciary?
That's a fantastic question. Yeah, that's a fantastic.
Cases are heard very fast. The judiciary is more independent, and people are more confident to go to court.
Fantastic, and that's a very important point, because justice delayed as well is not really justice, right? Justice has to be delivered in a timely fashion. And one of the things, and I think it was under Governor Ambody that we started having the open door courts and a lot of, what's that word? Arbitration, right? So we need special panels, one for land matters, that's separate from the actual court process. Special panel for land matters, and now special panel for it's not just domestic disputes, but it's so difficult for a woman to get divorced in Lagos State.
You want people to get divorced?
It's not that I want people to get divorced. It's for a person that is on that path to actually achieve that, right? Because there are so many, and just maybe I've not expressed myself properly. You have our social fabric is being torn in ways where women are left stranded with children and fathers that are not being responsible. There is a huge rate of that. I know if you don't know the data, then you will not be aware of this thing that is almost a pandemic going on in Lagos State. And you have a lot of women that are saddled with that. And I feel that we need a special arm of judiciary to actively deal with that in a very quick way. Same thing with land cases. It's not right that people are going to have to be in court for over 10, 20 years trying to solve a land matter. And then ease of doing business, right? There must be a court that also assesses that as well. I think those three things will be the things that I'll be working with the judiciary. It's not like I'm going to go and impose myself. I'll say these are some things that the data is pointing out currently in Lagos State. What do you need to be able to work more effectively in this regard? These are some ideas I have. Do you think it can fly? And if it can fly, what do you need to be able to achieve this? And also, what is your own input? What do you feel we should have special panels for that can also ensure that Lagosians get justice in a timely fashion?
Okay, so another issue in Lagos is the issue of building on water, sand filling.
It's a
a
terrible
lot of people
issue.
have, and I don't know if that's directly your line of
It is
architect.
urban planning.
So how would you, handle that kind of situation?
So this is not a campaign thing that I ran on, because I said I've always said that the large scale sand filling of our water bodies and our wetlands is at least 60% responsible for the flooding that happens in Lagos, because water has to find its way out. Now, every time you do this huge amount of sand filling, you're trapping water in. So when rain falls, water cannot move out the way it was supposed to move out. And when they're doing this large-scale sand filling, they're not making adequate provisions for drainage, right? You find a lot of spaces, a lot of canals that we have, they're not bounded, right? It's just there's a hole in the earth and water is just going through. So that way it continues expanding and expanding because there are no walls. It's not properly constructed, right? So we need to ensure that we have a wetland protection policy, a wetland protection plan. And it's not just saying that this place should not be sand-filled. It's actually giving it a use. One fantastic example is the Lekki Conservation Center, where it's a huge area of wetland, but it's been given a use. So you won't just wake up in the morning and hear that somebody has gone to Sandfield Lekki Conservation Center, because it has a use. And there are several uses for it. You can have parks, you can have solar farms, you can have art creativity to these things, and also have it as a tourist attraction. But the main point is it's allowing for water to go down, right? And if you don't, because what you find is a lot of developers are just sand filling and focusing on the profit they'll make, not the lives of the people that they are either displacing or lives of the people that the water eventually, start to affect their properties and even the roads and infrastructure.
All right. So, Maduka, you have anything to say? We're wrapping up shortly.
Said, Jeremy said something.
Okay, so Maduka,
during the elections, Jeremy said that we train the area boys in Lagos, that we can have area boys running around. But then, Jeremy, I wanted to ask, how possible and how feasible is this? For people who have been on the street for 10, 20 years collecting money and tolls from drivers and other people, which they share. How possible is it to take these boys, or these men, if I may say for some of them, into a place where you have to train them in modern skills or, to earn a living from their own sweat? How possible is it?
So I think that we have a common misconception about these young men that are on our streets. And I do this every local government I go to. I go and interact and engage with them. And you find some of them are university dropouts. Some of them just had one event after the other event that just had them on the streets, right? And I always ask, so if there was jobs, would you be interested? Because there is this idea that you just want to be standing. And all of them are like, give us jobs, we want jobs, right? So that is where I come from, right? Because it's, when you look from the outside, it just seems like this guy just wants to be standing on the street collecting. But how much of that money actually goes to them, right? So for me, it's about creating a new system of taxation that can actually be accounted for and then goes directly to benefit all of these young men, whether it's funding their food, their feeding, in exchange for them getting their skills, right? Because you cannot say someone should come and learn something on an empty stomach and then at the same time tell the person not to be collecting money on the road. So there must be a proper program that's domiciled at the ward level, at local government level, so they're not even incurring transportation costs to get there, right? And then they get these skills, and these skills they are then, construction companies are then mandated to employ them to do work in that local government.
Okay, let's wrap up with your final message to Lagosians. Where do you think Lagosians get it wrong in terms of, governance, elections? What are some changes you'd want to see in, attitude towards elections with Lagosians?
I would say that I understand that in Lagos, from the time of Jimmy Agbaje, Dapo Sarami, there's been this idea that we must be divided. The APC has always done this. They call Jimmy Agbaje Jimmy Chuku. This is blue blood Lagosian. Because they divide us, because when we are divided and we are fighting ourselves based on tribe, we cannot ask them the tough questions. We cannot ask them what they have been doing with the monies that they've been generating from Lagos. We cannot ask them what they've been doing with the loans that they have been taking. If a people that have been in charge of government for over 20 years cannot come out and campaign based on how they have made the lives of Lagosians better, they always have to resort to bigotry, tribalism, divide and conquer, then they have not done anything for you. And it's time to change them. At the end of the day, all of us want a better life. All of us want to drive in less traffic. All of us want to be able to buy food at a cheaper price. And all the suffering does not discriminate based on tribe.
Yeah, hunger hits everyone.
When your children cannot go to proper public school,
yeah,
it's not discriminating based on tribe.
So do you see yourself ever joining the APC in the future? Do you think anything would ever happen that would hear that GRV is now with the APC?
I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. It's not. Listen, for me, if I can come into office, I can prevent all the loopholes, billions being collected and going to godfathers, and use that money to improve the primary health system, the education system, then I have fulfillment. If I have to be in office and I have to close my eyes to all these loopholes and money is being taken and going to one man's account when so many people are suffering, then there's no point. I might as well just stay at home with my kids.
All right, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you so
on
much for
Politics
having me.
Now
It was a
tonight.
lovely conversation.
Thank you. We hope to, have you back
No
when
problem.
you become governor of Lagos State, hopefully. We're here. We're keeping our fingers crossed. I'm not saying we're voting for you. Definitely, we're keeping
You
the
never
options.
said that.
No, don't mind Maduka. Maduka is just Maduka. Maduka, we're going now. So I'm letting you're laughing. I'm letting you go now. So enjoy the rest.